Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, it is our generational wealth education segment, and now the SA Reserve Bank hikes interest rates have actually went up once again, making it the 10th increase in a row when it comes to South African consumers, and they will definitely be forced to readjust their monthly budgets once again after the South African Reserve Bank hiked the repurchase or the repo rate once again. Now this time by 50 basis points, and we are going to be looking at where the SARB governor in particular, which is Mr. Kganyago, he did make that announcement on Thursday following the bank's Monetary Policy Committee meeting, where he did indicate that the 50 basis points hike to the repo rate means that the repo rate will now increase to about 8.25%, and the prime lending rate will actually be about 11.75% in the country. Now, this increase is the 10th consecutive increase since the start of 2022, with South Africans seeing the repo rate rise from 3.75% at the end of January 2022. Now, Thami will be educating us tonight on all things interest rate and inflation. Welcome to the show, Thami.
Thank you so much for the invite. I see you rocking polo next today. Are you warm there?
It's quite fashionable today. Let's chat about interest rates. What are interest rates, Thami?
All right, so interest rates in layman's terms, so we can split it into two, right? So you got your prime lending rate and then your repurchase rate. So you're always on the news where, as you mentioned earlier on, they were speaking about the repo rate being increased. So the repo rate or the repurchase rate is basically the South African Reserve Bank increasing or decreasing the interest rate at which they borrow central banks. So your central banks or commercial banks could be your Standard Bank, ABSA, FNB, Capitec. And then we have what we call your prime lending rate. So that's the interest rates that the banks then charge us as consumers or borrowers or savers,
Yeah, and just touching on the interest rates as well, why are they actually rising at this very moment?
So interest rates, remember, if we take it a step back, right? We take it to COVID. So COVID interest rates were at its all-time lowest. I mean, we're looking at interest rates or repurchase rates of 3.75, as you mentioned earlier on. So that was just basically to encourage spending amongst consumers. So we had more money in our pockets and were able basically to spend more. So when interest rates go up, it emphasizes us or encourages us to save a bit more. So when you save a bit more, we spend a bit less. So interest rates, basically, they go up and down so that we can curb the inflation rate.
Yeah, talking about inflation as well, does inflation have anything to do with interest rising?
So no, it does not have to do with interest rate. It's actually the inverse. So the interest rate, they are the ones that basically say whether or not we are able to spend more or not able to spend less. So when the inflation rate rises, as we've seen, with what's happening of late, I mean, you look at how much you spend for a loaf of bread 2 years ago, as opposed to now, 20 bucks would get you a loaf of bread. So what then happens is that we need to then increase our interest rates so that the inflation rate can decrease.
Yeah, and just looking at the higher interest rates, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we have to look at our everyday consumer, our everyday South African citizen. You did mention the example of bread, but let's also look at other things. When it comes to savings, for example, what will higher interest rates mean for savings and loans and credit cards and store credit as well?
All right, so that's a nice one. So it depends on which side of the coin you're at, right? So if you've got savings, so that's your unit trusts, retirement annuities. So when the interest rate goes up, that actually helps you as a consumer to have more money in your savings. And on the inverse, when inflation rates go up as well, as you said, that it actually decreases the amount of spending power that you have in your pocket. So as a consumer, when interest rates obviously go up, that means it's bad for people who've got credit cards, who've got bonds, who've got vehicle finances, because that repayment amount actually increases as well. So it depends on which side you're at. If you're a saver, you'll have more money. If you are a borrower, you'll have less money in your pocket.
Yeah, and I think also looking at the other side to it, we're looking at consumers where we also have to look at people who decided to spend some money on investments. What does this mean for people with investments in particular?
Yeah, so it means people who have investments, when the Reserve Bank increases the interest rates, they're actually smiling because it means that their funds are, going up in value, as quickly as possible. So that's why I say that it depends on which side you are. So at this point, people that have savings are actually in a good position. And when interest rates go up, it's actually the right time for you to start saving.
Yeah, and just looking at the interest rates as well, I mean, who actually sets the interest rate?
So there's the Monetary Policy Committee, which is combined of economists. So they work for the Reserve Bank, or they form part of the Reserve Bank. So they look at all the macroeconomic and microeconomic standards within South Africa, and particularly the inflation rate. The inflation rate. So they look at inflation rate, and then they say, okay, since inflation rate is sitting at, let's say, 5.6% or 6%, they say, all right, how can we adjust, the interest rate so that inflation does go down?
Yeah, Thami, I mean, you do share a lot of knowledge with us. You also have your own podcast, right? And I mean, you are the founder of the Uncensored podcast, and you do focus a lot on financial literacy. Why is it so important for us to emphasize financial literacy in South Africa? And there's been a growing demand or a need for financial literacy to actually come into schools and be part of our school syllabus. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm for that. I'm pro that. And if the government or anyone in the educational system is listening to this, would like obviously an opportunity to go into schools, do presentations on just basic financial literacy, how to budget, how to save, how much should you be saving, what decisions should you do when you want to buy your first car, with your first paycheck, what do you want to do? I know you and I can say, when we got our first paycheck, hey man, we did a lot of mistakes. So we're trying for people not to do the mistakes that we did. And we're fortunate enough, just to be in the space where we are, where we can share the knowledge that we've acquired through the years, and share it with the public.
Yeah, I think it's very important, and I think you're definitely onto something, that's going to definitely change a lot of lives when it comes to impacting them, when it comes to financial literacy. But Thami, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for hosting me, man.
Awesome, guys. That is Thami Madlala, who is the founder of the Uncensored podcast, and just sharing with us some knowledge when it comes to interest rates as well as hikes, and also looking at the importance of financial literacy. I thought it was such a great conversation to have. When it comes to financial literacy, we have been hearing a lot, even on social media. A lot of your financial advisors have been saying, why do we not have financial literacy in school? So I think it's such an important conversation.
It is an important conversation. I think also what also needs to happen is preparing people for things like this, like, repo rate going up and inflation, amongst other things. Because it's said when you wake up tomorrow morning and you're seeing that your car installment is up by 2,000 rands and you didn't budget for that that coming month. So it is quite tricky. But South Africans, we always persevere. On that note, see you again tomorrow, same place, same time, with nothing but amazing content for you. Assalamu alaikum.